Welcome back. It's now exercise time. And be warned, this is probably the hardest exercise in the entire course. It's going to be really, really frustrating, and you're going to maybe say some not so nice things about me. But keep in mind that as developers, we're always confronted with tasks that don't have a clear solution. And we're going to have to Google around, look at code examples, and figure out what needs to be done, because our boss or our company or our project doesn't care that we're frustrated. Sometimes we just need to deliver work. So in this exercise, you might feel a bit of frustration, especially if TypeScript is new to you, but just stick with it. I'm going to provide a solution video after this so that if you get really, really frustrated, you can continue on watching it. But I do recommend that you go along with this exercise, try and add types as much as possible, and hopefully you learn a little bit of TypeScript out of it. Now, I've actually set up everything for you just to make it easy, because setting up the project isn't necessarily the goal of this course. You see, I use the Create React App TypeScript. I follow the instructions, which is just to download Create React App and then run it with the TypeScript option. And this, out of the box, gives us all we need to start writing TypeScript. I then finally took our RoboFriends app and moved the files over to this new app that includes TypeScript. So now here I have our TypeScript project, which I'm going to give you access to. Before I just set you off, keep in mind that there are a few differences, such as there's now a tsconfig file here that gives us some compiler option. We can see where our output's going to be, that we're using ESNext modules. We have a target as ES5. We see that we also allow JSX React. And what that means is if I go into my source folders, our files are not JS files, they're TSX files. They have this X at the bottom because the TypeScript compiler needs to understand JSX. And if we go down, we also see that we're excluding some things that we don't want the TypeScript compiler to go through. Finally, there's also something called TSLint. And I actually commented all of this out. If we go to the default project that you get from here, you'll see that the TSLint has some of the recommended linting and for React, as well as TypeScript, as well as some prettier configurations to make sure that our code is pretty. But I removed that from our project. You can see here that these are all linting rules that we can get through something called TSLint, again, because we're just compiling code. TypeScript can go and lint our files as well. But I removed these because it's going to frustrate you even more. You're just going to keep having to deal with all these errors. And because we're only focusing on TypeScript right now and not necessarily linting, I've commented these out. If you want an extra challenge, you could uncomment these, but get ready for a tough road ahead. Finally, if we go to package.json file, we see that in our dev dependencies, we have the TypeScript package as well as the @types. That is, we have type declaration files for Jest, our testing suite, Node, we have React, and React DOM. So if we go to our Node modules file or folder and go to types, we have access to all these type definitions that we can use with these third-party libraries. So how do you get started? I want you to just write types, because if you run npm start here, the TypeScript compiler is going to run for you. And right now the app is working and we see we have no errors. But if we do anything funny in our components, if I just say that this is a string, you'll see that TypeScript fails us because type string has no property name. because it's expecting an object. We have TypeScript already working out of the box. I want you to go ahead and try and add types for components and containers. And because it's a little tricky, I started you off just a little bit in the app.tsx. And again, don't get intimidated here. This is just standard for React. All I've added are these lines over here where I'm exporting because I might want to use my interface robot. And this is just a common syntax where because it's an interface, I'm going to say I and then robot, the name of the interface, which has name, ID, and email. We've seen this before. And then we also have the interface for our props that the app receives. In our case, we don't really receive any props, so it's empty. And then we also have our interface for our app state, which has robots and search field. Robots being an array of interface robots, and then search field being a string. And then finally, I have React component that takes in the props, which are empty, and the state, which, as you can see, has robots and search field. And I added this in here because it is pretty specific to React, and it can trip you up. But now that you know how to do this, you can go off on your own and start adding types. Like I said, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be frustrating, but I encourage you to try this out. And then by the end of this exercise, you can message in our community chat how you like TypeScript, how your experience was, because there's so many people that love TypeScript and so many people that hate TypeScript. And it's a really polarizing tool. So I want to hear all about it in our chat community. But for now, go off, work on this, and I'll see you in the solution video. Bye-bye.